Welcome back to the Stretford Sessions, the Manchester United podcast we bring you each and every week on the upper tier. Head over there, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Audio version show, as always, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you pick up audio versions of the show. And if you'd like to contact the show, we're on Twitter at _upper_tier, and you'll also get us on Gmail, the upper tier podcast. Also dropping content on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok on a daily basis. Joining me as always for these Manchester United previews, our resident referee, Mark. How are we, Mark?
Thanks for having me on. I'm all good, cuz.
So who else would I be having on? So the Dazzler, we gave the Dazzler the night off tonight. He's burning the candle at both ends at the moment. So
that's allowed, isn't it?
He had earned a break. He's on a lot of podcasts these days. So said we'd give him the night off. I'm sure he was chomping at the bit to talk about this derby. I know we dropped the Premier League preview and we also dropped the Beat the Bookie. And we had contrasting thoughts on this game, to say the least. And I was heavily faded. Funny enough, people will say I was heavily weighted towards United and he was heavily weighted towards City, funny enough. So interesting. Initial thoughts. I mean, I suppose before we get into the preview, we're hearing more media crap coming out today about leaks and Maguire and that the players aren't happy with Maguire either from a captaincy point of view or from a player point of view.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on that initially?
Yeah, you wouldn't know how much of it is true, but I think, listen, you don't have to be a professional footballer within the club to know that Harry Maguire is not up to the standards of being a Manchester United captain, especially when you look at the players that are there. You know, we have De Gea there who could quite easily take the armbands. You know, he's probably, him and Jones are probably the only two players left from the Ferguson era that are still there. You know, you could have it on Bruno. Some would argue you could have it on Ronaldo as well. So there's plenty of players there that I would say that would have that ilk to take the captain's armband. Varane, listen, yeah, exactly. You know,
great choice.
You know, you look at Scott McTominay. Could he be a future Manchester United captain as well? You know, that took away. So, but yeah, listen, like I said, you don't have to be involved within the club or be a professional to know that he's not up to those standards of being a captain.
Yeah. Interesting contrast between the two managers, Pep versus Ralph. Ralph so kind of reserved and relaxed and kind of in control, and Pep is just an absolute lunatic. So it should make for an interesting dynamic when we watch this on the sideline.
And it makes it interesting that they've obviously faced each other over in the Bundesliga as well. So they know what each other is all about. Obviously, Pep will have the upper hand with probably the quality of squad that he has is a lot better than what we have available. You know, that took away. And obviously he's been there quite a long time, where Ralph, I know you and Daz were speaking about him and he'd be going upstairs, but he's only there 4 months. You know, he's in a, you know, he's come in after Solskjaer was fired near the end of November or whatever it was. So he's had a tough, but he's doing a good job. You can see improvements in the pitch. You know, you've seen the Watford game last week. I think very disappointing 0-0 draw, but when you look back at it as well, it could have been a lot worse if we hadn't created the chances we created. You know, we're showing signs of we're trying to do the right things. You know, the one-touch football, the little flicks, the true passes and stuff like that. But just unfortunately, at the minute, we can't finish our dinner, and that's going to cost you points at the end of the season.
Yeah, I sometimes find, I know you mentioned there that he's there 4 months, and I think because of that, he somewhat gets a bit of a pass. But surely the expectation, and I say it to Darren as well, even when you've got a squad like that, like United squad is decent as well, let's be honest there, they should have enough to beat the likes of Watford and teams like that.
They are decent. Sorry for coming across, you know, they are decent, but don't forget he's picked up a group of individuals. He hasn't picked up a team, you know, necessarily. If you look at City there, it doesn't matter what 11 play, whether it's Nathan Ake, Laporta or John Stones or whoever at the back, they play as a team. We haven't been doing that. We've been playing as a group of individuals, you know.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to put you, I listened to a couple of previews on a couple of other channels over the last couple of days, because based on me being struck down and being a little bit ill at the moment, I've all the time in the world to listen to other podcasts as well.
Fair play to you for even doing this as well, you know.
But I was listening to a couple of the channels and they were doing combined 11s. And I think it's the first time I ever seen the combined 11s had no United players in the combined 11,
Yeah,
which is staggering, really, isn't it? Really is staggering.
absolutely. But it
Now,
just showed you the quality City
yeah,
have. You know, they
yeah.
could field two teams.
Now, I suppose you could make a case maybe for De Gea because he's been outstanding this season. And of course, when you match him up to Ederson, we know Ederson is at that kind of the Allison quality, that elite kind of quality.
Yeah.
But having said that, David De Gea has been probably the busiest goalkeeper in the Premier
I was
League.
just going to say to you, it says a lot
Yeah.
about the stats when he's the busiest keeper. It doesn't say much about the back four in front of him.
Yeah, but it says a lot about his quality as well. And I suppose you could make an argument if I was doing a combined 11, I wouldn't be too upset with either De Gea or Edison, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And listen, he's had to come back from a lot the last year or two. De Gea, there's been a lot of question marks over him, but as he has done before, he's come back and he's proved the doubters wrong with his performances and some of the saves that prove that he's still world class, and obviously keeping Dean Henderson out of the team, you know.
Yeah, kind of a little preview. I mean, obviously the form of both teams at the moment are coming in. I mean, we've seen City, you know, they've kind of flattered to deceive, but they've kind of got over the line kind of every time.
Yeah,
I mean, you see them against Everton there last week. They relied on the most craziest VAR decision to get
unbelievable.
Now, I'm not saying they would have drawn or they would have lost or the penalty would have scored, but at least, you know, make the right call. And then we seen them midweek against Peterborough as well. Took them 60 minutes to break, you know, high-flying Peterborough down in the FA Cup.
But they've had a few like that this season, haven't they? Like you look at 1-1 against Southampton, the Arsenal game 2-1. I thought Arsenal dominated the first half of that game. The sending off, Gabriel sending off, changed the whole game. And Rodri scores the winner in the 93rd minute. So they are getting those breaks. They're getting that bit of luck.
Yeah, the Brentford game sticks out to me as well. They made very hard work of it.
That was 1-0, wasn't it? Just 1-0, and Chelsea 1-0. So there are those games. Funny enough, Denzel, one of the lads in work, was actually over at the game, and he had a great view of it. And obviously, listen, you didn't have to be at the game to realise it was a penalty. Mr. Paul Tierney stepping up to the plate again, as we had been talking about previously on the mashups. So it was. Listen, I don't know what was going on. I know there was an apology given to Everton and Frank Lampard as well.
What was your thoughts on that as a referee? To me, I think coming out and doing that made the situation worse than made it better. Because, like, I mean, if Everton were to go down this season and they were to go down by, say, a point or a goal difference or something like that, or City were to win the league by a point or goal difference, like, that apology is just like it's the final nail in the coffin, really, isn't it?
Exactly. It's a bit like, do you remember the goal, the Aston Villa Sheffield United game? When the ball was over the line, it wasn't given. I think it was Michael Oliver was in charge and said no, the watch didn't give it. But listen, from the FA's point of view, it's supposedly good PR, but
it's ass covering.
It's
ass covering for stupidity.
But like, listen, we've talked too often about referee and VAR decisions this season on the mashup and stuff like that, you know, where it's gotten out of hand. Like, you can obviously listen as an Everton, if you're an Everton fan, how frustrating would it be if that was a scenario that you go down by a point and you're looking back at that. Everton will probably appeal for some kind of compensation off the FA and stuff like that, you know, for the money they're going to lose dropping out of the Premier League, if that did actually happen, you know. But yeah, it's just like we were saying, it's a funny situation because the VAR is just, it's getting questioned every week, and you and Daz are throwing questions at me every week, and it's just, like I say, we have to get it in order and get it sorted out sooner rather than later.
Well, see, the thing about it this season, where we've initially started throwing questions at you about it being a referee, it was really to get your thoughts on a decision in relation to, you know, endangering a player.
Exactly.
But now it's got, like, I mean, there's no point in me asking you what your thoughts were on that handball.
I know,
because you know, Stevie Wonder in the crowd with the Labrador and the white cane would say that that's a handball. You know what I mean?
Well, I had an interesting conversation with Rowan, one of the lads in work, the other day when we heard about the apology coming out, and I said I put him to him in a different way as well. I said, why have a Man City come out and apologise to Everton? Because in snooker, if a player fouls, he calls the foul.
Yeah, or gets a pot of jammy ball.
Yeah,
or something like that. He'll always put his hand
he'll
up.
put his hand up or tap the table as if to say, right, it was a mistake. But you don't see that with footballers, you know what I mean? Pep knows he got away with one big style.
Yeah, but that comes across from the history of snooker or pool, where if you didn't do that, you get a cue across the back of the head. Whereas in football, you don't get that.
I was just trying to throw something different at Rowan and work, and I was saying it to him, listen, you won't get that in football, Rodri coming out and saying, no, I apologise, it was a handball, the decision wasn't given, there has to be some sort of sportsmanship and behaviour going on as well.
Yeah, I think when you're at that level, it reminded me of Henry when he handled the ball against us. Remember?
Yeah,
it's that kind of scenario there.
I'm still not over that.
No. I still. It's funny enough how brilliant he was as a player, and you see him as a pundit in the studio. And out of all the brilliant stuff he did, and the goal against Barthez, and all the kind of brilliant stuff, and the brilliance of him and stuff like that, and everything that he won, the minute I see him on the screen, I think of that handball.
Yeah, I'm the same. And like my mother-in-law, Sandra, she's a massive Arsenal fan. And I slag her all the time because she absolutely idolises him. But that's all I can think about. He's an absolute cheat.
Yeah, absolutely. United also coming in to the game, not in scintillating form. As you said, they're playing reasonable football, creating chances, but not finishing those chances. And of course, midweek, they have to stand by and watch, obviously, because they're out of the cup and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And seeing Middlesbrough then do a number on Tottenham as well.
Well deserved, by the way, as well. I was watching it there on BBC. As well deserved that win.
But yeah, I think with United, and I've said it to Darren a few times on the show, I do think they have the capability of putting together a big result. Not like the Leeds result where there was a bit of a grind to that. It was a tough day, tough pitch, tough circumstances, tough game, and you get a 4-2. But that was very like that 4-2.
And the referee let things go too much as well,
Absolutely. But I do think they have the ability that something will eventually click. And that Bruno, Ronaldo, Elanga, Sancho, Rashford combination of something of that will click eventually and will yield dividends.
Yeah, hopefully, because like you look at it in previous, the last, say, 4 years, us going to the Etihad, we haven't necessarily gone there in good form, but we still managed to get something from it. We still managed to shock them. Even in the League Cup, the second leg a few years ago, we won 1-0. Now, listen, we lost over the 2 legs. But we've gone there not performing well in previous games, and we still managed to get a win. So that's what I'm clinging on to. Just to mention Sancho as well, I think he will start. He has a point, obviously, to prove to Pep after being there before. So I can't wait to see him, and I can't wait to see Elanga as well, because he's the only player I've seen kind of over the last few weeks, when he gets the ball, he's running at defenders with no fear, So
he's
that's
he's the only one, and Ralph mentioned it as well. He's the only one at United at the moment that's actually fucking smiling.
Yeah, that's
looks like he's actually enjoying this football,
So, but listen, from you look around the pitch from a lot of positions, we need to be firing on all cylinders, and that starts with the man up front, number 7, Cristiano Ronaldo. In the last 10 games, he's got 1 goal and no assists. Listen, I know he's 37, but if you look at some of the players now, I know, listen, this example is probably because he's in a lower league, but you look at someone like Billy Sharp, who's the same age as Ronaldo. He's playing in goals left, right, and centre for Sheffield United. Now, like I said, I know the quality in the league is different, but from Ronaldo's point of view, he has to get in the score sheet or an assist against City on Sunday, because we're missing Cavani. I don't think Cavani's going to be back in time, if I'm right.
No, he's out, yeah.
So we need him to be firing. Does he, if he's not performing, does he throw Rashford on up top, risk it, and give him an opportunity as well?
Well, the last I looked at the head-to-heads at the Etihad, and the last 6 visits have been 4 wins on a draw and 1 loss, so 4 wins to United. So certainly what you're saying rings true. And we know when it comes to derbies, we know even with ourselves with Liverpool, when we go to play at Goodison or Everton come to Anfield, kind of the form that you're in at the moment doesn't really count for anything, because it's always just, it's a derby, it's a set of fan base, they're both fired up for it and stuff like that. I mean, we know that the rivalry in the league is still Liverpool and United. That's probably the biggest rivalry in the league in terms of fans. But certainly, City step into that mode as well. The interesting thing that could help you slightly is the fact that Liverpool are playing West Ham at 5:30 on Saturday. So if we were to beat West Ham, that heaps a little bit of pressure on City as well.
Exactly.
That could help you guys out.
But we have to look at it from the other point of view. Noel, if we get beaten by City, let's say, and Arsenal beat Watford beforehand, they'll go a point above us, and they'll still have 3 games in hand.
Yeah, albeit the 3 games are tough games. I mean,
They
you
are.
think
They've the likes
it's
of Leicester
Spurs,
and
it's Spurs and us, isn't it? Us as
Leicester,
well.
they've Leicester, Spurs, and yourselves, so they are tough enough games. But listen, there's a mind games there. If you're, Arsenal are ahead of us with still games in hand, we're looking up at them, thinking, right, we have to catch them.
Yeah, and you would think out of those 9 potential points, you'd expect them to get at least 4.
Yeah.
You'd expect them to probably do Spurs and maybe a draw to Leicester, maybe worst case, and probably we'd probably turn them over because as we normally do.
No, because like I said it probably a month or 2 ago that Arsenal would be the ones to watch with the games in hand and not being in Europe. So, but I think from the point of view of the top 4 in the title race this weekend is going to be vital for all teams involved.
Yeah, it's going to be pivotal, and it's a difficult seat for a United fan to sit in as well, because if you beat City, you blast the title race open for Liverpool to potentially us going on and winning the league. If you don't beat City and City beat you, then you're potentially out of a top 4 race.
Yeah.
In terms of the Champions League, and we hear about all this Super League potentially come back. We'll be doing a show on that about the new format for the Champions League coming in versus the Super League and what that seems. Doesn't seem to have been a bit of a ruckus about the Super League as well, now that it's being mentioned that they've ironed out all the problems that people had with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, and especially with everything going on at the moment with, the climate, the global climate at the moment, it looks very appealing for clubs with that kind of wealth and financial gain available. I didn't see too many clubs coming out this week going, get us away from this and the testing and all that kind of thing. People were thinking, 300 million. Yeah, we fancy a piece of that cake, actually. And when you look at the 2 setups, actually, it looked a more appealing setup compared to the new Champions League.
The Champions League,
which I think is just money grabbing of the highest order.
Listen, why change something why try fix something that's not broken? That's why. But I don't think we'll see as many protests as we did the last time.
No, either way. So. I think people have other worries on their mind.
That's it. I come here just after talking about the form and all there. If United win, if City watch it be 0-0 now.
I'll take that all day.
I suppose as a Liverpool fan.
I mentioned to Darren on the preview, the Premier League preview, that I thought Paul Pogba has a huge part to play in this game. Darren was kind of the opinion that he probably doesn't start, that maybe he would be brought on, say, on 55, 60 minutes to impact the game. What's your thoughts on that? Are you Pogba from the start, Pogba coming on impact, or what way are you looking at it?
I've been thinking about this today on my lunch break and work and stuff like that. McTominay is only back from an illness. Does he start him? Does he go with McTominay and Fred? He could go with McTominay and Fred and maybe even drop Alanya or something and play Pogba off the left, Sancho off the right. Could he play Fred and Pogba sitting behind, Alanya, Bruno and Sancho? He has worried City over the years, especially in the Etihad. Remember the 2 goals he got that time, the 3-2 win. I think Chris Smalling got the other goal. But listen, on his day, he's very, very dangerous. But I do always say this, especially to my dad and stuff. It depends what Paul Pogba turns up on the day. If you get the one that doesn't want them now, that loses the ball and he's throwing them back, City will punish him and punish United. But you wouldn't know what way Ralph's going to do it, but I think I can see him starting. To be honest with you, I don't know if McTominay will start necessarily.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking this is such a big game in terms of the season, and there's so much at stake on it in terms of United season and City season. I thought this is the perfect platform for Paul Pogba to come out and put on a scintillating performance, and that's long overdue.
I thought he did well against Watford. There was a few passes he put. He's done a little flick back for Alanya. Alanya probably should have scored. He hit the side net with it last week. But you see glimpses of that Paul Pogba. You just want them over a full 90 minutes rather than little bits and pieces in the game,
Yeah, I think funny enough, and he was whipped off as well, wasn't he? He was subbed off. And when he was subbed off, I thought that's when Watford got a little bit of a hold in the game and started creating chances and stuff like that as well, So if you look at current form at the moment, obviously City with 4 wins, a draw and a loss in their last 6. For United, it's 3 wins and 3 draws, which kind of on the face of it, you wouldn't say is terrible form, but when you look at the actual draws that possibly should have been wins,
exactly.
That's the signal. I said it to Darren, that Watford result must feel like a terrible loss as opposed to a point gained, you know.
It did. It did. But like I was saying, you seen the way we played at times. It gave you a bit of hope rather than if we didn't create those chances, you'd feel worse off than it was, you know.
Yeah. In terms of team news, just a quick one down through it. Obviously, Ruben Diaz and Nathan Ake are doubtful. Too big. They came off against Peterborough, and they're trying to say it was kind of precautionary and stuff like that. So I'm not too sure. Zach Steffen and Cole Palmer are also injury concerns. Jack Grealish is available, and obviously Gabriel Jesus are raring to go. What have you made of Grealish? I mean, 100 million he's come in. He's flattered to deceive this season, hasn't he? It's been a poor season by his standard, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I remember, I think you were talking at the mashup when he signed about how do you fit him and Sterling into the same team. And I remember vividly, but he has, you know, we talk about players that sign for a big amount of money that don't live up to the hype. And he's definitely one of them. Like we've talked about Paul Pogba before, Romelu Lukaku as well. He hasn't seemed to, you know, I know he scored during the week in the FA Cup game, but he just hasn't seemed to get going. He hasn't seemed to. His season hasn't started as of yet. But again, listen, is it? He was a big fish in a small pond at Villa. No disrespect to Aston Villa, and now it's the opposite. So he's probably acclimatizing to that as well.
Yeah. And plus, we've seen Pep has pulled him a number of times as well, and also left him out at times as well.
Exactly. Well, listen, I was just going to say his off-field behaviour has to improve, and I think there's a lot of that going behind the scenes as well. You know, Pep won't put up with any of that crap.
Yeah, I just think it's obviously very difficult when you go from being the man to be one of the men.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he's finding that difficult.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely an adjustment. And I was kind of looking at it as well when it was happening. I was going 100 million, which I thought was massive money at the time, you know. And then I was also thinking as well, do you really see Jack Grealish as a Man City player? You know, that kind of way that they play and the way that he plays.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about it, you know. Now I think he will. I think he will come good, but as you said, he has to get his own head in order, really.
Oh,
yeah. In terms of yourselves, McTominay's back, so you should be buoyed by that. I mean, it's amazing with him when he's there, you don't kind of zone in on him as much. It's only when he's not there, and you've mentioned it before on mashups as well. It's only when he's not there we see the Scott McTominay, the effect, really.
Yeah.
Cavani's obviously still out with the groin issue. If Cavani was available, will Cavani go in before Ronaldo, in your mind?
If he had a good run of games beforehand and the way Ronaldo's playing, I definitely would start. He gives you that different option. You were talking about Diaz and maybe Aki injured. They'll probably go with Hugh Laporte and maybe Stones centre half.
Yeah.
So he gives you that different option. Obviously good in the air with the boy Sancho on the wings, whipping balls in. He'd be very dangerous to play against City. Yeah. But unfortunately, with going over to Uruguay, coming back, getting injured, I think he had COVID and stuff like that as well. So it's just been difficult to get him going, and we'll probably only get him going, and then he'll be gone in the summer. So
it's amazing. His lack of availability has kind of overshadowed Ronaldo's poor form in terms of if he had been available and not injured and available to play, we might have seen bigger decisions being made on Ronaldo as we go along, because Cavani's work rate up front is vital, and you don't get that from Ronaldo. Plus, I find when Cavani plays in a partnership with Bruno, they don't take each other's space. They're wider apart, and they move. Their movement is different. Whereas if you look at Ronaldo and Bruno, they're nearly piggybacking each other at times, you know. So,
and Cavani will chase balls down as well, where Ronaldo doesn't. He likes to conserve his energy, and he doesn't have the defensive know-how to get back where Cavani does. I'm not saying all the time, but he does track back, and he does like the kind of. I remember the Champions League game, and the ball went into the corner. Cavani absolutely sprinted to close the ball down, where Ronaldo was just standing there. So that's the difference with them. But hopefully we can get back over the next few weeks. You know, maybe hopefully before the Atletico game.
Yeah. In terms of Maguire, what's your standing on this for the derby? I mean, is there a case for playing a back five? Or is it a case of, does he go back in? or does Lindelof and Varane hold their positions? What's your own thinking on this at the moment?
He could go to a back five considering the opposition, but personally, I think I'd stay with Varane and I'd play Lindelof as well, given the form. I think Maguire is too slow to play against a City team that you have the likes of, Sterling, you've Silva, you've players from everywhere that have pace and can attack. But I just think, I know Maguire had probably from February to March last year or February to April, he had 2 really good months. But since then, there's no consistency. And I just think there's been too many mistakes from him, from our so-called captain as well. It's been very disappointing for me. And I think he should be dropping. And if he does, it's obviously a big shout. And it's a big kick up the arse to him as well to get his head together and get himself on the level that he should be for a Manchester United centre-half and captain.
Yeah, my guess is he plays him because I think he has basically said that if he's available, he'll play him and that the captaincy is staying with him till the end of the season. That's what Ralph has basically said. So
like I said, I like for Varane and Lindelof to start. But,
what are you flanking either side of them? Are you going Shaw? Are you going Telles? Are you going Wan-Bissaka or Dalot?
I'd go Dalot and Telles, honestly. That's like Shaw to me over the last few weeks. I think I mentioned he looks like the player he was a few seasons ago. He's kind of lethargic. He's playing with his head down. He's become
a bit one-dimensional, hasn't he? He's become a bit one-dimensional in his play.
He has, and it's disappointing because on the back of last season, I thought he'd come in with full of confidence and try to build on that, but he obviously hasn't. On the far side, Wan-Bissaka, we know he's good defending at times, but not so much going forward. So you lose that attacking option on the right hand side. So, I personally go Dalot and Telles.
Would you be thinking Wan-Bissaka in terms of, because you would assume in this game that you're going to have to surrender a certain amount of possession, and by doing that, you would assume that you're going to have to probably do more defending than you will attacking. So in that case, in terms of balancing that, is Wan-Bissaka potentially the better choice in there, or?
If the reason, like you were saying, you possibly would say Wan-Bissaka, but then you have to think, right, are we going to sit out there for 90 minutes and sit there and try to win possession and catch City on the counter attack? But and again, the question is, will he play a back four? Will he play a back five? So it all depends. You just wouldn't know what he's thinking in his head. But like I said, for me, I prefer Dalot because I think he is good at defending and we know what he's like going forward and his crossing. And it's the same with Telles over the left-hand side. Having Telles there, his left foot is impeccable, and he obviously link up play with Ronaldo and stuff like that is excellent as well. So he would, for me, he warrant to start this with his play and the way Shaw's been playing lately. I'd start Telles.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, possible lineups anyway. Man City: Ederson, Walker, Diaz, Laporte, Cancelo, Silva, Rodri, De Bruyne, Mahrez, Foden, and Sterling. Again, Ruben Diaz, we're not too sure. Could be potentially Laporte, not Laporte, Stones. But I mean, their team kind of, you're not going to be more than 1 or 2 players off at any stage anyway when you're picking their team. Obviously, Bernardo Silva is a big player for this game as well, especially in midfield. He'll relish that kind of battle in there with McTominay and stuff like that. Super footballer. And Cancelo, we've seen how dangerous he is as well. For United, the possible lineup here at the moment is De Gea, Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Varane, Telles, Pogba, McTominay, Elanga, Fernandes, Sancho, and Ronaldo. So quite an attacking lineup. Again, as you said, you could take Wan-Bissaka out, you could put Dalot in. It depends on whether you want to balance attack versus defense, really,
You'd wonder what is going through the mind of Ralph now, what he wants to do. Obviously, it's be his first game against City. And we've seen how well we've done the last few games. Like, talking about Shaw, do you remember the game there, 2 seasons ago? Henderson threw the ball out to Shaw. Shaw went on an amazing run, done a little 1-2 with Rashford and bang into the bottom corner. Yeah. That's the type of Luke Shaw I want to see. But it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I think another player I just wanted to mention on City side, who we hadn't talked about, was Phil Foden. Really, really big fan of him.
Yeah.
You know, it says something about the City squad when he's one of the last people we're talking about here after the few names that we mentioned, the likes of Silva and Grealish and stuff like that, you know, Sterling and all. But he's something else. And going back to Silva, I've seen Silva has been playing in the number 10 role in a few games as well. Like they don't play with that natural goal scorer, and they still manage to get over the line in games as well. So,
well, they spread the goals through the squad so beautifully. Like, I mean, they rarely go through a season when literally nearly everyone bar the keeper picks up a couple of goals. You know?
You see the likes of Laporte and Ake and Stones and then
Cancelo
from
so Diaz has been his goals were fundamental in the earlier part of the season.
Exactly. So they can score from anywhere, but it's going to be a really interesting game. You know, packed Etihad. I know we always slagged it, no fans, but there'll be a big crowd there, big United contingent as well. So, really looking forward to Super Sunday.
Yeah, in terms of the betting, obviously City are 2-5 on. They'd be heavy favourites. The draw is 7-2. Can't remember the last time I seen Man United 6-1 in the betting. You know what I mean?
It's mad, isn't it? Like
it's a reflection really of what we think at the moment of where things are at, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Because you look at the points difference between us and City. You know, that just says it all. So that's where I say, you know, and obviously the form that we're going in is kind of going towards that 6-1.
Yeah. Give us your prediction.
0-0. No. Do you know what? Again, I've had a few things going through my head all day, this, that, and the other. But I'm going to be controversial here. I'm going Manchester United 3-2.
3-2.
Yeah, I think there'll be a good few goals. Watch it probably will.
This was kind of a heartbreaker for me. I'm going United 2-1. Because I just firmly believe they have to show up eventually in a big game and make something happen. And I think it's their opportunity to really cement, you know, either a top 4 or even a top 3, because you're not a million miles away from Chelsea either. And we know the troubles they're going through at the moment with everything going on in the world as well. They could easily find themselves getting derailed. But I just think it's a massive, you know, situation for United and for City. It's a huge game with so much on it as well. So I'm going to go United 2-1. Just to help us out really in the league, more so than me cheering for either.
Be the only time this season you want United to win 2-1.
Absolutely, and I suppose we should shout out to Zinchenko as well. I seen the boy in tears there the other day with everything that's going on.
Yeah,
he has family back in the Ukraine, as far as I know, and I'm sure it's tough on him and stuff like that as well. And
I seen West Ham give compassionate leave to Yarmolenko there. He's after going back to get his family to bring them back to safety.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen Shevchenko as well on Sky Sports as well. His mother and his sister are still in Kiev as well. And it's amazing when these things unfold, isn't it? I spoke about it last night with him. We're going to be dropping a show on Roman Abramovich, but it's amazing when you look at it. These guys have so much wealth and so much money, and at times like this, it just means nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're broke or whether you're a multi-millionaire. You can't affect this situation when people are trapped in this kind of situation.
Exactly. Like, and you've seen the scenes in Goodison Park last week, Everton against City. You know, they bring a tear to anyone's eye about what's going on. And
we seen it at the cup final as well. Like, it was just so hard to watch. And we stand with our brothers and sisters in the Ukraine. No doubt about that on the show. The only thing I've left to say, obviously, our thoughts and prayers go out to Shane Warne's family, who he suddenly passed away today. He was found a suspected heart attack, 52 years of age. One of the greatest cricketers of his time and stuff like that. So obviously, a shout out to his family. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family on this sudden death. We just thought we'd say that's a rest in peace, Shane Ward. But yeah, we will see Sunday. No doubt we'll have a match reaction and player ratings. Darren will be available for that, and he'll either be in very good form and smiling, or he will be the usual "I told you so." But we shall see. But hopefully the title race will be blown wide open, and hopefully
the top 4 race as well.
And the top 4 race is going to be. I think we're in for. It's such a festival of football this season, isn't it? We have a title race, we have a massive top 4 race, we have a brilliant relegation battle. Like, we couldn't have asked for much more, except you'd obviously want your own team to do better.
And
you know, I've heard us being mentioned as well, and I hate saying this as well because I don't want to, 22 games away from a quadruple.
Oh,
I'm not going to be
yeah.
saying too much of that. You won't hear too much of that from me. For me, it's one game at a time. I say it on the podcast. Every game's a cup final at the moment, and that's how we're going to.
And he's got a good draw in the FA Cup as well, you know.
We did, and we've won leg in the quarter final of the Champions League as well. And sure, you never know what might happen there. I don't know. We could see a whole bunch of other sanctions coming along. God knows what's going to happen. You know what I mean? It's, maybe just give us the 4 trophies and be all good. Who knows? Well, until next time, pleasure having you on as always.
Fair play.
We shall look forward to a festival of football this weekend. Cheers, bud.
Thanks a million, lads.